Hi and welcome back. In our last video we went ahead and started modifying the living rooms page in our sample site. And specifically what we did was we added these three call-out boxes, and we saw how we could create a hybrid layout that has one number of columns one place, in this case a full width column, and then multiple columns in another place. Now, the next thing that we want to go ahead and do is add the modal pop-ups to these different boxes here. And again, these modal pop-ups can go anywhere at all. I'm just placing them in these columned boxes. And let's go ahead and take a look at the finished project here. And you can see the link here. It says click here for more information. And when I click on that, you can see the modal pop-up appear. And I can close it, and I come back to my page. So we're going to see how to do this. And again, this tool is called a modal pop-up, And there are lots of these tools that are out there. You can go to Google and search for modal pop-up window, and various scripts will come up. But I also have one that's very easy to configure inside of my framework, and that's what we're going to go ahead and use for this exercise. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this, and I'm back here in Dreamweaver, and I'm in my living room page. And I'm going to go ahead and come to my files, and I'm going to open up my framework. And just like before, we've gone into Framework, JavaScript, and Plugins. And inside of the Plugins folder, you're going to see this folder called Modal Pop-up. And just as with all of the other scripts that we've added, we have three different folders here. We have a CSS file inside the CSS folder, a JavaScript file inside of the JavaScript folder, and we have this image inside of the images folder. I also have jQuery here, but you won't need that if you've already added jQuery to your template or to your site in another place. All you'll need to do is make sure you have a link. We also have modal pop-up instructions right here. And if I double click to open that up, this is going to be the instructions for adding this tool to your website. So let's go ahead. Step one, we've done this several times before. We're going to go ahead and copy the JavaScript and the CSS from the framework into our site. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here, and I'm going to grab the CSS there. And I also want to grab this JavaScript, so I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard and click that, and you'll see they're both selected. I'm not selecting jQuery because we've already placed that in our project. And I'll go ahead and right-click and go to Edit and Copy. And now I'm going to go ahead and switch back into my project folder. I'm going to right-click on the JavaScript folder, and select Edit, Paste. And you're going to see that the Popup CSS and the Popup JavaScript are pasted in place. I want to go ahead and take that CSS file and drag it up into the CSS folder. Remember, with all of these plugins, you're always going to put the CSS in the CSS folder, and you're always going to put the JavaScript in the JavaScript folder. And if you have images, you're always going to put the images in the images folder. And that's actually what we're going to go ahead and do next. I'll switch back into my framework here. And you're going to go ahead and see that image right there. I'll right-click on it, do Edit, and Copy. And whenever I right-click and do Edit, Copy, or Edit, Paste, you can always do Control-C or Control-V. The keyboard shortcuts work there as well. And I'm going to go ahead and go into my project. I'm going to right-click on Images, Edit, and Paste. And this won't come up for you. This is coming up for me because I did this once before when I was doing my dry run. I'm going to click Yes to all there, and that pastes that into the Images folder. So now I have all of the files that I'm going to need to set up this page, or this tool on the page. The next thing we need to do is we need to add the scripts to the page. And again, if you've already added jQuery, you don't need to add it again. So all you're going to need to do is copy these two lines and then go into your template. So I'm going to go into the code view here, and I'm going to look at my source code. And I want to be all the way up here at the top. There's our script that's attaching jQuery, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. If you don't have this in your file, though, you are going to need to put this line of code at the very top of your head section. I'm going to go ahead and click in this title area where I can add things. Everything out here is associated with the template. But if I click at the end of title and hit enter a couple times, I can then go ahead and paste those items in there. So now I've got a link to the script and I've got a link to the CSS. You can see the default path is to go look in the JavaScript folder inside of Popup, or the CSS folder and find Popup CSS. If you name these folders something different, you're going to need to go ahead and rename the path. But again, you should always keep your CSS files in a folder called CSS, and always keep your JavaScript files in a folder called JS. It's just sort of one of those things that everybody does, and it makes it real easy to know where things are. So I've gone ahead and I've added those two scripts to my page. Now I'm going to go ahead and come in here. Step 3 is to add this code for the pop-up that's actually on the page. And the pop-up is going to consist of two things. It's going to consist of a link, and you can see that right here. And it's going to consist of a div that actually is the pop-up. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to copy all this text, all this code. Whoops, right click and copy. And then I'm going to come back into my page. And I'm going to scroll down until I find box 1, box 2, box 3. And there I go with these. Now, since I want a link in each one of these boxes, all I have to do is give myself some space underneath that and paste this in here. And I'm going to go ahead and tab it over so everything's nice and lined up. And notice, here's the div for the box. It's closing right here. Whoops, right here. So all this code needs to be contained in the div that's going to contain the pop-up. So I've gone ahead and done that. I'm going to do this 2 more times. So again, I'm going to copy this. Actually, I already copied it. I don't need to copy it again. And then I'm going to give myself some space and paste that in there. I'll do the same thing down here. Highlight a blank line and paste that in there. And I'm going to save that. Now, there's one other thing that we really need to do for this pop-up to work. But I want to show you the problem before I actually show you the solution to the problem. So I've gone ahead and I've saved this here. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and save it one more time. And let's go ahead now and go into Design View. And you should see Text Link for the pop-up right here. And when I click it, there is my pop-up. And you're going to see I click the others just to make sure that they work. And they're all popping up for me. And again, I'm in live view right now. So I'm going to come back in here to code, and I'm going to customize this just a little bit more. And again, this is the code for the actual pop-up. This is the text that forms the link. So again, this right here, this text link, is this code right here. So I could, instead of saying text link for the pop-up, I could say click here for more information. And I could just go ahead and copy that and paste it in to each one of the three options there. And I'll save that. And now you can see that has been modified. Notice we still haven't done any formatting. We're still in the process of setting all this up. And now I'm going to come back in here to the code view. And again, for your pop-ups, this is the heading on the pop-up, and this is the paragraph below the heading. And when I go ahead and go into design view, let's look at that one more time. There's the heading, and then there's the paragraph below the heading. So I could come in here to design view, and in box 1 for the title, I could type Modern Living Rooms. And I could come down here and say Modern Dining Rooms. Whoops, I'm sorry. Modern Living Rooms, Traditional Living Rooms. And then one more time down here. Contemporary Living Rooms. We'll save that. And again, this is the heading for this pop-up for box 3. This is the heading for this pop-up. And then finally we have, scroll up a little bit more, this is the heading for the first pop-up. I'm going to save that, and let's go into design view and see what we've got. I'm going to go ahead and click here, and you can see I've got Modern Living Rooms. I click here. Oh, I still got Modern Living Rooms. What happened to Traditional Living Rooms? If I click over here, I've got Modern Living Rooms again. So the same pop-up is coming up for each one of these boxes. That's a problem. And the way you correct that is really, really simple. Here's the code for the pop-up. You can see here it says Data Reveal ID My Modal. Then down here it says Div ID My Modal. Whatever is here is going to link to whatever is here. If I scroll down here a little bit more, I've got the same thing, My Modal and My Modal. The problem is that the way the browser is reading the code, it's only going to assign an ID to one div. An ID can only apply to one element on a page. So it's always going to be assuming that the My Modal div is this very first one here. So how do we correct that? Very, very simple. We do My Modal 1 here, and we change the ID here to My Modal 1. I come in here and say div ID 2, or My Modal 2, and My Modal 2. And I come in here and say 3 and My Modal 3. So you just need to make sure that your div names for your pop-up or your div IDs for your pop-up are different. Now I'm going to save this, and let's go back into design view, and let's see where we go at this point. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, Modern Living Rooms. I'll close that. And now I have Traditional Living Rooms. And click there again, and Contemporary Living Rooms. So that's the solution to that problem. And if I get questions on this script, probably half the questions on the script are answered by just making sure your IDs are different on the link and the ID for the actual div. Got to make sure that those are going to be different, and then you'll be able to pop that open. Now, as far as formatting goes and styling goes, a lot of the styling for this is already been created. For example, the H1 here. When we go ahead and pop this open, You can see it's that orange color with the line underneath it, and the P tag is indented slightly. And what that's doing is it's simply grabbing the characteristics for the H1 or for the P. You can always go ahead and write whatever kinds of style rules you want for or to format those links though. Now, the last thing I want to do on this actual page is I want to go ahead and format this link right down here. And you can see it's small and is sort of, pushed in there. So we want to go ahead and format that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into my style sheet and I'm going to scroll down all the way to the bottom. And the bottom here, near the bottom, you've got a miscellaneous section. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new class style down here. And remember, class styles always start with a period, and I'm going to call this popup-link. And I want several things to be true about the pop-up link. The first thing that I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to specify the font size. Whoops. And the font size, I want to go ahead and make it 12 pixels. And then I'm going to go ahead and close that off and save it. And you're going to see, whoops, I can close that. I'm going to go into my source code here. And then I'm going to go ahead and format each one of these links with that class. So here I am in box 1 for Modal 1. And I'm going to go ahead and click just to the right of the A, and type a space. And I'm going to select the attribute class. And I'm going to choose pop-up link. And I just need to go ahead and copy that and paste it into each one of these links right here. So now that class style has been applied to each one of those links. When we go into design view, you can see the font that the text is in is now larger. Now what we need to go ahead and do is we need to apply some spacing onto this. I don't want it to sit right on the bottom here, and I definitely don't want it over to the left. I want it to line up with this paragraph of text and give me about 5 pixels of space below this. So I'm going to come back in here to code, and I'm going to come back into my style sheet and scroll up until I find my containers here. And you can see the paragraphs here. And the paragraphs have 5 pixels on the top and 10 left and right. And also 10 on the bottom. So I know when I'm looking at this, the first letter of this paragraph is 10 pixels from the left. That's what I'm looking for because I want them to line up. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my style sheet here, whoops, and scroll down until I find, whoops, there's that pop-up link. And I'm going to go ahead and do margin. And I want 5 pixels on the top. And let's say top and bottom. And I want 10 pixels left and right. Now, the margin statement by itself here won't do what I want it to do. When I go into design view, you're going to see it moved it over to the left, but it didn't give me any space at the bottom. And the way you can enforce top and bottom spacing on an element that's actually an inline element is by using the display property and choosing the value block. So if you just say display block, that will allow you to apply top and bottom margin onto an inline element like an A tag. And again, that may be more CSS than you know, but I have a video series on CSS that will talk a lot about block level elements and inline elements and how you work with those. And now if I come into design view, you can see I do have a little bit more space there. And let's go ahead, and I'm in live view, so let's go ahead and check this. And there I go. there is my pop-up. So that's all there is to creating a modal pop-up on a window. And again, I put them right here. You could put them anywhere at all. Anywhere at all you want that to be, you can go ahead and create that link to a pop-up. In our next video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to work on the contact page. We're going to go ahead and work on the contact page. And again, what we're going to go ahead and do here is going to be a very simple contact form. If I come right over here under Contact Us, you can see I'm just going to create 4 fields. But you can very easily just copy and paste these lines of code and add as many fields as you want into this form. We're also going to use a very simple jQuery plugin to make sure that the visitor, if they submit a form, has entered in required fields. And we're going to go ahead and make name, email, and message required. And if they don't enter that information in, when they click submit, they're going to go ahead and get an error. And you'll notice it didn't come up for website. It just came up for email and name because that's not a required field. One thing that I didn't add here is I didn't add any kind of a note that says the asterisk means that this is a required field. We'll go ahead and add that in our project. But this is basically what we're going to create in the next video. I'll see you then.